Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. This one is just one piece of news, and that is that we have the audio excerpt preview for the Legacy of Yangchen audiobook. Now do keep in mind, this is going to be just over 2 minutes of an 11 plus hour audiobook. So we're getting like a quarter, maybe even less of a chapter here, but still, given that we're still in or around like a couple of weeks away from the release of this book, this is good to add on to the first preview chapter that we got. So I'm going to play this here. Now I will be pausing it a couple of times just because I'm never sure about copyright with like showing nearly anything on YouTube. So just work with me here. So we'll play the first quarter of this and kind of give some commentary and kind of do it that way.
Mitigation. The explosions had long since stopped. Kavik waited in the hospital with the others. He knew the Avatar would come straight there to provide healing, if she was still alive. One by one, the injured filed in. He forced himself to look. Walking wounded, mostly the young and old, or people on the smaller side. The villagers who would have been trampled most easily. Thankfully no dead yet, at least not beyond Henshe.
Okay, so there's the first 30-something seconds, and obviously that kind of reveals to us this from the description. The brutal assassination does appear to be Zhongdu Henshe. So he has been killed. This was definitely one of the people that I think was expected. It would be, I guess, Chaisi trying to get Henshe out of the way because he might have information that could just be awkward and get in the way. It is another person who knows about the combustion benders as well, who could use that knowledge to mess with things in terms of if he ever told world leaders. So him being gotten out of the way assists things in that way, but obviously it's a situation that Yangchen was not able to control here, obviously. Now the other thing you'll note here is that Kavik is here. The location that we're in here, it seems to be the hospital nearby the Northern Air Temple. So this was obviously the first place that Kavik went to when he first left Bin-Er in the first book, and he and Yangchen did that kind of healing together. So it seems like people are filing in from an incident from the previous chapter where this assassination has happened, and we assume also this has just happened also. Later on in the preview, you'll see a mention of explosions, so it seems like unanimity has been freed from the action scenes in the previous chapters. Now, has Kavik, how involved Kavik was in the incident, has he just arrived on the scene, has the Order of the White Lotus sent him here, is kind of unclear. But it's an interesting one for sure. But we'll continue on with the excerpt.
The airbenders who had been struck down outside his room were awake and resting in the corner. They'd groggily reported seeing nothing before an impact to their heads knocked them out.
So there's the one kind of piece of information about kind of how it actually happened. Notably, the airbenders guarding Henshe were not taken out by a combustion blast or anything like that. They were just hit in the head with something that they couldn't immediately recognize. So who is the assassin is the kind of big thing here. Who is going to be skilled enough to potentially take out, based on the last book, 6 potential Master Airbenders guarding each of the unanimity members and potentially Henshe? Might be less people because it's Henshe here and not one of the combustion benders. But still, very interesting that they're kind of giving you that detail there in terms of, who could that be? Who could be working potentially for Chaisi to make this happen? Or was this sent by one of the heads of state? Who actually knows? But one interesting piece of detail.
The murdered Zhongdu was certainly going to be, conversation. Kavik scuffed his foot along the floor. Tayagum and Akudan were still helping with the cleanup, which left Jujinta hovering over his shoulder, vigilant.
So there we go. We see that he's in the same vicinity as Yangchen's current companions, Taigum, Akudan, of course, but also Jujinta, who we know has become a companion as well as of the end of the previous book. And obviously the idea is that it seems like she has probably told them what Kavik did, so that's why they're not particularly working together here, and Kavik feels a little bit kind of outside, but we'll go on.
The Avatar's last order to stand guard no longer had a target with Hun She dead, and it seemed like Jujinta needed an outlet. Kavik was the prisoner now. He wanted to explain he had nothing to do with the assassination, but any excuses would have fallen flat. One didn't have to go that far back in time to find Kavik's hand in shaping this disaster.
Okay, so there's the kind of recap in case you kind of maybe hadn't read the book in a while, but obviously Kavik's betrayal from the previous book, very, very notable thing, still affecting things, and Jujinta obviously feeling frustrated that he wasn't able to fulfill his duty. Now, this is where we don't really know what the full situation is, and that they were saying the airbender guards were guarding Hun She, but now Jujinta was as well. Was he just not in the immediate vicinity when whatever happened? It was obviously some sort of a surprise attack. The assassin is obviously meant to be someone hugely notable, but who exactly is it, and who could it be? Kalyan is described as being a skilled waterbender, but like enough to be an assassin, get in and out like this, who actually knows? People obviously would like it very much to be Tieguai the Immortal, Lao Ge, but I'm not sure we have enough context to fully say for sure that is the case, but he's skilled enough to where he could do something like this, but let's go on.
The side doors to the hospital, big enough to accommodate a wagon backing in, flew open with a crash. Yangchen shuffled inside. Draped over her shoulders was a much larger monk. She bypassed the queue of people waiting to be healed and laid the man on an open bed, setting him down in gentle, deliberate steps. "Cordon," she said to Jujinta, while she shucked off the top of her patient's robes. To Kavik, she barked, "Water, like last time, now." She was in her heightened state, her focus as sharp as the edge of a snapped glass. Jujinta pushed back the disappointed crowd to create more space. Kavik found enough clean water from several waiting buckets and surrounded the airbender's body with the liquid, lifting him up so Yangchen could inspect the damage. He kept his mouth shut, fearful that a single wasted breath might tip the scales the wrong way. His lungs are ruptured from a shockwave.
Okay. So there we get sort of like the repeat in what seems like the same location. Yangchen arrives in the hospital. She has someone who's properly injured from an explosion. So this particular airbender hasn't been just hit in the head and kind of knocked out. He's actually been caught in like a combustion blast, it seems. So again, this seems to be what fully confirms that unanimity has been freed. That's why there are explosions going off. That's an interesting thing just by itself. So Yangchen brings in this monk to be healed. She gets Kavik to do the same thing that they did with the woman from the previous book. But you'll note that it's, this is them communicating, but he doesn't know what to say to her. She's just using him as an asset in an emergency situation. This is not exactly like they're back on good terms. This is obviously meant to be the setup for this. They finally come into contact with each other. Yangchen is going to be forced to bring Kavik into play. We're going to start the potential attempt to kind of recover something from their relationship, their friendship. So this is a nice kind of insight kind of into that. We don't know what exactly Kavik's position is, and that is he full on White Lotus now, or is he just sort of under the protection of the Order of the White Lotus? The wording at the end of the previous book was more that it's time you joined us, but we don't know what exact way that's going to work. Yangchen, of course, doesn't particularly like the White Lotus, but it seemed like she and Ayunarak at the end of the previous book managed to find some sort of a middle ground to work together on a situation that is actually super, super important. So, interesting stuff. Of course, bringing into the description a little bit more, Chai-Si is going to come into play super heavily. We assume she is behind the assassination to one, get Hun She out of the way, but then also to get unanimity back into her possession. Because again, we don't know the details about are there other members, or are these the only three kind of final products of Project Unanimity. I'm assuming you have to keep it relatively small, given that as we go further into the future, combustion bending becomes a very, very rare ability that we only know 2 other characters outside of the Yangchen characters who actually have it. So the expectation would be that this has to be kept somewhat small, so the successes of unanimity are probably minor, but who knows what sort of reveals and details will actually happen in this book. The other thing is, like, how well known does this become? Like, the world leaders, like, how much do they grow to learn about this? Which is kind of why, like, Chai-Si taking out Hansha probably helps to keep the thing overall a secret. But now we're kind of wondering how public or not is Yangchen and Chai-Si's kind of conflict going to be, and can it all be kept kind of under control? And then there's a lot of other stuff kind of in the middle of this as well. In the middle of this as well, like Kalyan we're expecting to show up at some point. Yangchen's going to have to go after Jetson at some point, but that seems like a bit of a side plot that might be something from either the very start or very end of the book, but maybe there's a way to bring it all together where they can kind of tackle that and something else at the same time. But yeah, a nice enough preview, just giving us a sense for, like, okay, it's a scene that actually has Kavik and Yangchen interacting. It reveals to us a pretty notable detail: who was assassinated. So it seems to confirm it wasn't like one of the heads of state, which I think was kind of what people were more leaning towards. I think I myself was even kind of leaning more in that direction. But I was kind of feeling that, yeah, Hansha probably feels like the obvious one to do, because I'm not sure what other use that character necessarily has, because I think Kalyan will kind of continue on that kind of core dynamic there, because those two kind of work together, so you can continue with the Kalyan plot. But it seems like Hansha has run his course over the first book, and we're bringing Chai-Si into play, and there's no messing about, basically. So going to be exciting, of course, to see how this happens. We're not too far away from the book actually releasing. It's, of course, out July 18th. So we are, 3 weeks away? Just about, yeah, pretty much exactly like 3 weeks away from the book releasing. So exciting times. I hope to be able to get my kind of review content started pretty much as soon as the book releases. At this point, I'm really not expecting any opportunity to get the book early or anything like that. So stuff will be just starting, I think, the day the book actually releases. So, you know, a little bit unfortunate there, but, you know, it'll be the same time as kind of everyone has access to the book. And do keep in mind, audiobook, normal book, ebook, all out the same day. So everyone should have access to the book as soon as possible. I'm not realistically expecting much more preview material for this. We might see an FCE interview like we did for the last book. Now, what exactly that's going to be, because they don't want to do spoilers, might just be a minor preview. But probably the main expectation would just be, like, confirming what the future of Chronicles of the Avatar is in terms of, like, what book 5 is going to be. Obviously, we're expecting to switch over to a different avatar, but are they going to confirm that in the next couple of weeks, or are we going to have to wait another while, like we did sort of building up between Shadow of Kyoshi and Dawn of Yangchen? That's going to be a kind of interesting thing, but, you know, it's exciting. This final preview material here means that we are super close to the book actually releasing now. So again, I have lots of content already up doing preview material for Yangchen. I have a live stream where I discussed the initial chapter focused on Chai-Si. Before that, I did a live stream where I discussed basically in great details, full speculation on Yangchen. Just earlier this week, I finished up a series of 4 videos that is a recap of the Dawn of Yangchen. So if you don't have time to reread the book, that is a series of videos that kind of sums up in, I think, pretty nice detail, without leaving out too many things, the full Dawn of Yangchen in, I think, just over 2 hours, all the videos together. So it's cutting the audiobook time down by like 80%, down to, you know, a fifth of the length, basically. And then once the book comes out, my plan is to do a non-spoiler review, a spoiler review, and then to jump straight into chapter analysis videos, where every single chapter of this book will get a video, and we'll go through it chapter by chapter, full detail on what we're expecting to be the most significant content release for Avatar for the year. So going to wrap it up there. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this audio excerpt. What is your excitement level for Legacy of Yangchen? A couple of weeks out, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.